Atlanta, Georgia, was home to Angela Williams, a 34-year-old woman whose determination rivaled the strength of the oak tree roots surrounding her modest suburban house. As a dedicated nurse and mother of two young children, Kevin and Sarah, Angela balanced the demands of her career with devotion to her family. "Kevin, Sarah, time to wake up," Angela called in the morning, entering the children's room with a warm smile. The two blonde-haired teenagers jumped out of bed, their faces lit with youthful energy. "Are you taking us to school today, Mom?" Kevin asked eagerly, clutching his school supplies. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's go. Hurry up or we'll be late," Angela replied, while Sarah bounced excitedly around them. Despite the everyday joys, Angela knew life had its challenges. She thought of her husband, John, whose charming smile and blue eyes concealed a battle with alcohol he couldn't seem to win. John's nightly disappearances and emotional distance weighed heavily on Angela, but she maintained a strong facade to protect her children. At work, Angela was known for her compassion and impeccable technical skills. "You're one of the best nurses I've had the pleasure to work with," commented her colleague Rachel as they prepared patients for the morning. "Thank you, Rachel. I believe caring for others is what keeps me balanced," Angela replied, gently adjusting the sheet of an elderly patient. In the evening, when John came home, the smell of alcohol preceded him. "Angela, where's dinner?" he asked abruptly, his voice tinged with frustration. "I've prepared it for you in the kitchen, dear. How was your day?" Angela asked, trying to keep her tone light. "Don't bother, Angela. I've had a rough day and I don't need your lectures," John replied, grabbing a beer from the fridge without even looking at her. Angela sighed, knowing another night of loneliness and disappointment awaited her. As she set the table for the family, she wondered how long she could sustain this double life of apparent normalcy. Angela and John had met on a sunny spring day in Atlanta. She was at the hospital, caring for a patient when he walked in, his natural charm immediately catching her attention. After a brief flirtation and a few dates, they fell in love quickly. "Angela, you're amazing," John said, holding her hand as they walked through the local park on their official first date. "I've never met anyone as strong and kind as you." "Thank you, John. You mean a lot to me too," Angela replied, looking at him fondly. Marriage came naturally after a year of dating. Angela and John were radiant at the altar, promising love and mutual support, unaware of the storms ahead. The birth of Kevin and Sarah brought joy and challenges. The babies were born with fair skin and light eyes, inheriting their father's looks. While Angela admired her children with unwavering maternal love, she also faced curious looks and comments whenever she went out with them alone. "You should see the faces when I tell them I'm their mother," Angela shared with her best friend Lisa at a local cafe. Some seemed too surprised for words. Lisa shook her head sadly. "It's a shame some people can't see past skin color." "You're the most loving mother I know, Angela." The following years brought family challenges. John, a rising executive, began using alcohol as an escape valve for work stress. His evenings stretched late, leaving Angela alone with the responsibility of raising the children. "John, please, you promised to be here for dinner tonight," Angela said one evening, setting the table. "Kevin and Sarah are waiting." I know," John replied, visibly irritated. "Just one more drink, I swear." Tension settled in the house despite Angela's forced smiles. She felt the pressure of keeping the family together while grappling with her own emotions. As the years passed, Angela's health remained steadfast, while John battled his inner demons. The love that bound them was being tested by circumstances that seemed increasingly insurmountable. Angela faced a constant challenge whenever she went out with Kevin and Sarah in public. Even dressed in stylish clothes and proudly holding their hands, she often received looks of surprise and confusion. "Angela, why do people always look at us like that?" Kevin asked one day as they walked together through the local park. "Some people still have narrow views of what a family can be," Angela replied gently, squeezing her son's hand comfortingly. "They don't understand that real family goes beyond skin color." Sarah, with her radiant smile and her father's blue eyes, looked at Angela sadly. But Mom, why do they think you're not our mom? You're the best mom in the world. Sarah's words touched Angela's heart. She knew her children loved her unconditionally, but the weight of daily prejudice continued to be a constant pain. On one particularly painful occasion, Angela and the children were in a local store when an older woman approached. "You must be their nanny," the woman said with a mix of surprise and disapproval in her voice. Angela took a deep breath, struggling to maintain her composure. "No, I'm their mother," she replied firmly, though her heart was breaking inside. Kevin and Sarah looked at Angela with concern, feeling the discomfort she was facing. They knew their mother was strong, but they also understood the emotional impact of these moments. "Let's go, Mom," Kevin suggested softly, gently holding Angela's hand. Angela nodded, silently grateful for her children's support. As they left the store, she promised herself to continue being an example of strength and dignity for Kevin and Sarah, no matter what the world thought. John's issues with alcohol began to manifest more clearly as Angela struggled to balance her family and professional life. Nights that should have been peaceful were now marked by the smell of alcohol and her husband's emotional absence. "John, we need to talk," Angela said one evening as he returned home late, visibly intoxicated. "Your alcoholism is affecting our family." John laughed bitterly, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Don't lecture me, Angela. I know what I'm doing." John's words cut Angela deeply. She held back from showing how much his actions hurt her. "You promised you would try to get better, John. Our children need you." "I try, Angela, but everything is just so hard," John muttered, sinking into the couch with a look of despair. Angela fought back tears as she watched her husband. She loved him deeply, but she also knew their marriage was slowly unraveling. As she cared for the children and worked hard at the hospital, she wondered if things would ever return to normal. As nights stretched on, Angela dealt with household responsibilities alone. She found herself increasingly isolated, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy for Kevin and Sarah's sake. "Why is Dad never home?" Sarah asked one day, her blue eyes filled with confusion. Angela knelt before her, gently holding her hands. "Dad is going through a tough time right now, sweetheart. But we're here for each other, okay?" Sarah nodded, hugging Angela tightly. "I love you, Mom." Angela held her daughter tenderly, promising herself she would do everything she could to shield her children from the impact of their father's alcoholism. As she faced her own emotional challenges, she drew strength from Kevin and Sarah's loving presence, promising that together they could overcome any obstacle life threw their way. Angela felt a lump form in her throat when she heard the doctor's words. "Cancer." It was as if the world paused for a moment, leaving her suspended in a void of shock and fear. "I'm so sorry, Angela," Dr. Stevens said, his serious expression reflecting genuine compassion. "We're here to help you every step of the way." Angela looked at the doctor, struggling to keep calm. "And what about my children, Dr. Stevens? They can't know." The doctor nodded, understanding Angela's concern. "Let's discuss your treatment options first. It's important that you focus on your health right now." With a heavy heart, Angela absorbed the information about chemotherapy and surgery. She wondered how she would face this battle while continuing to care for her children and deal with John's increasingly erratic behavior. At home, Angela sat at the kitchen table, looking at the photo of her once happy family before everything began to unravel. She knew she needed to be strong, not just for herself, but also for Kevin and Sarah. "Angela, are you okay?" Kevin asked, entering the kitchen with a worried expression. She forced a smile, trying to hide the pain behind it. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Just a little tired." Kevin, at only 15, sensed the tension in his mother's face. "Mom, I'm here for you, no matter what happens," he said determinedly, hugging her tightly. Angela held her son gratefully, feeling a wave of love and protection flood her heart. She promised herself she would fight the cancer with all her strength, not just for her own life, but for Kevin and Sarah's future. As night fell over the quiet house, Angela closed her eyes for a moment, gathering courage to face the challenges ahead. She knew the journey would be tough, but she would find strength in her love for her family and in her determination to keep fighting, one day at a time. Angela lay in the hospital bed, staring at the white ceiling while the monitor beside her emitted a steady beeping sound. She had just suffered a stroke, a devastating blow that left her weak and dazed. Beside her, Kevin held her hand carefully, his eyes filled with worry and fear. "Mom, please, be okay," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Angela tried to smile, but her face was tense with pain. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'll fight." Doctors and nurses came in and out of the room, adjusting tubes and checking her vital signs. Dr. Stevens explained the severity of the situation to Kevin, who listened attentively, trying to understand what was happening to his mother. Meanwhile, Sarah was at home with a family friend, waiting for news. Her heart ached with worry, but she tried to keep hope alive. "Sarah, your mom is a strong woman," the friend said, holding her hand for comfort. "She'll pull through this." Sarah nodded, though tears welled up in her eyes. "I know. But it's so scary seeing her like this." In the hospital, Angela battled both physical and emotional pain. She knew her body was fragile, but her determination to survive for her children was unwavering. Hours turned into days as Angela slowly recovered. Kevin's constant presence and Sarah's visits brought a comfort she desperately needed. "I'm so sorry, Mom," Sarah said softly, holding Angela's hand gently. "I love you." Angela weakly smiled, feeling her children's love anchoring her amidst the storm. She knew there was still a long road ahead, but she was determined to fight with all she had. Her children were her reason to keep going, her beacon of hope in a sea of uncertainties. As the sun set beyond the hospital windows, Angela closed her eyes, gathering strength to face whatever tomorrow would bring. She was determined to see her children grow up and live full lives, no matter what obstacles lay in their path. While Angela fought for her recovery in the hospital, unresolved issues weighed heavily on her mind. She began to reflect not only on her health, but also on the complex dynamics in her marriage, especially regarding John's behavior. On a sunny afternoon, John visited Angela in the hospital, his expression weary and his eyes avoiding hers. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his voice tense. Angela took a deep breath, feeling the pain in her body and heart. "John, I've been thinking a lot about us," she began, choosing her words carefully. He scoffed, visibly uncomfortable. "Here we are, talking about us, while you're lying in a hospital bed." "I know it's not easy, John. But we need to face reality," Angela said, her voice steady despite her physical weakness. John crossed his arms, his expression closed off. "I've been dealing with so much stress lately. You don't understand." Angela looked at him sadly. "John, I've always been by your side. But you need to recognize how your actions have affected our family." He stood up abruptly. "I don't have time for this right now. I need to get back to work." As John left the room, Angela felt a mix of relief for expressing her concerns and pain for her husband's lack of understanding. Meanwhile, Kevin and Sarah dealt with their own emotional battles. Kevin, now a young adult, confronted his father about his insensitive remarks about ethnic minorities during a family meal. "Father, you can't speak like that." "It's wrong," Kevin said firmly, looking directly into his father's blue eyes. John huffed, visibly irritated. "I'm just saying how things are." Sarah, always the most sensitive in the family, stood up from the table with tears in her eyes. "Dad, you don't understand. Mom has already suffered so much, and now you're being insensitive." John stared at them in silence for a moment, his expression a mix of anger and frustration. He then stood up and left the room, leaving Kevin and Sarah staring sadly at his retreating back. As night fell over the empty house, Angela reflected on the painful words exchanged and the cracks forming in her marriage. She knew the path to healing would not only be physical, but also emotional and spiritual. Angela was discharged from the hospital after weeks of intensive treatment. Her home now felt like both a sanctuary and a minefield of unresolved emotions. As she tried to recover physically and emotionally, she felt the need to address lingering issues. One afternoon, John came home from work earlier than usual. Angela found him in the kitchen, where he was making a cup of coffee with trembling hands. "John, we need to talk," Angela began, her voice still weak but firm. He sighed, looking at her cautiously. "About what, Angela? About everything that's happened?" She nodded, holding his gaze with determination. "About everything. About the alcoholism, about our children, about me." John lowered the coffee cup, his face showing a mix of emotions. "I know I haven't been the husband you deserve, Angela. I've been lost, drowning my frustrations and failures in alcohol." Angela took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. "I loved you, John. But love isn't enough when there's no mutual respect." He looked away, unable to meet Angela's pained gaze. "I know I messed up. I don't know how to fix this." "I don't know either, John," Angela admitted honestly. "But we need to try. For us and for our children." As they talked in the kitchen, Kevin was outside, working in the garden as a way to clear his mind. He had heard the murmurs of their discussion from inside and felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "Kevin, are you okay?" Sarah asked, appearing beside him with a concerned expression. He sighed, looking at his younger sister with sorrow. "I don't know, Sarah. It feels like everything is falling apart around us." Sarah held his hand comfortingly. "We'll get through this together, Kevin. Like we always do." Kevin weakly smiled, grateful for his sister's support. "I love you, Sarah." "I love you too, Kevin," she replied, hugging him tightly. Inside the house, Angela and John continued their conversation, facing the painful truths they had avoided for so long. As the sun set beyond the kitchen windows, they knew the path to reconciliation would be difficult but necessary. They were determined to find a way forward, not just as husband and wife, but as committed parents to the well-being of their children. Angela and John spent weeks confronting their personal issues and the challenges in their marriage. The tough conversations continued, sometimes with heated arguments and other times with uncomfortable silences. One afternoon, Angela found John sitting in the backyard, staring blankly at the horizon. She approached cautiously, sitting down beside him. "John, I've been thinking a lot about everything we've been through," Angela began, her soft voice cutting through the silence. "I still believe we can find a way forward together." He sighed, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Angela, I don't know if I can fix everything I've broken. I've messed up so much." She placed her hand over his, feeling the need to comfort him despite everything. "We can try, John. There's still love between us." John looked at her with a mix of gratitude and despair. "You're so strong, Angela. I don't deserve you." "We all make mistakes, John," Angela said sincerely. "The important thing is to learn from them and find a way forward." As they talked in the backyard, Kevin was in Sarah's room, helping her with homework. They had grown even closer in recent times, supporting each other as the family navigated the turbulent waters of forgiveness and reconciliation. "Sarah, I'm sorry for everything you've had to go through," Kevin said, looking at his sister tenderly. She nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. "We'll be okay, Kevin. Mom and Dad will figure this out." Kevin hugged Sarah gently, grateful for such an understanding and loving sister. "I love you, Sarah." "I love you too, Kevin," she replied, holding him tightly. Inside the house, Angela and John continued their conversation, facing painful truths and slowly rebuilding lost trust. As the sun set on the horizon, they knew the journey would be long, but they were determined to move forward together, one step at a time. Angela sat on the porch, watching autumn leaves dance in the gentle breeze. She held a cup of warm tea in her hands, lost in thoughts about the turbulent past months and the journey still ahead. John approached her, his expression serious but calm. "Angela, we need to talk about something important," he began, sitting down beside her. She turned to him, her eyes searching his with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. "What is it, John?" He took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "I've decided to seek help, Angela. I've started attending support meetings for alcoholics, and I'm trying to change." Angela felt a mix of relief and hope. She knew the road to recovery would be long and difficult, but seeing John's sincere effort was a step in the right direction. I'm here to support you, John. Always. He nodded, holding her hand gratefully. I know it won't be easy, but I want to do this for us and for our children. As they talked on the porch, Kevin and Sarah were in the garden, tending to plants together. Kevin looked at his sister with a gentle smile. Sarah, I'm proud of how you've handled everything. She smiled back, though there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. It's hard, Kevin. But I think we're all learning and growing. Kevin nodded, putting his arm around Sarah's shoulders affectionately. We'll get through this together, Sarah. I promise. Inside the house, Angela and John continued their conversation, sharing hopes and fears as they rebuilt their family. They knew the road would be filled with challenges, but they were determined to face them side by side, strengthened by love and the promise of a better future. As the sun set on the horizon, Angela looked at John with renewed faith. She knew there was still much work to be done, but in that moment, she felt grateful for the opportunity to start anew. Angela was at home, surrounded by the love of her family and the ongoing care of her doctors. The chemotherapy treatments had been intense, but she fought with courage, determined to face each day with hope and faith. One sunny afternoon, Angela was sitting in the living room with Kevin and Sarah, flipping through old photo albums. She smiled as she looked at the moments captured over the years, reminiscing about the smiles, the tears, and the many stories each photo told. Do you guys remember this day? Angela asked, pointing at a photo of a picnic in the park. Kevin chuckled softly, his blue eyes shining with tenderness. It was one of the best days, Mom. We were so happy. Sarah nodded, a tear escaping her eye. Mom, I'm so sorry. Angela gently held Sarah's hand. It's okay, sweetheart. We're together now. As they talked, John entered the room with a tray of tea and cookies. He smiled at the familiar scene before him. How are you feeling, Angela? He asked, careful with his words. She looked at him with love and gratitude. Better now that I'm with you all.